should be here shortly. On the roll call of officers, show that Mr. Sepulveda and Toy are not here.
Same person.
I mean, Guadiana, sorry. Guadiana and Toy are not here at this time. And we could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I
Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among the United cultures.
Okay, the first thing that we have is approval of the agenda items. You had a chance to see the agenda. Is there any changes? Sorry. The first thing is approval of the agenda items. There being no changes, can I have a motion?
Mr. Cordova, on my superintendent's report, we will not have the presentation on Cobre Pride homecoming events. Ms. Montoya will not be available to do that today, so we'll move that to another time.
Okay, so we can scratch that one.
Yes, please.
Any other changes? Can I have a motion for approval? Motion by Mr. Holguin,
Second.
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 Second by Gomez. Any questions? Any questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the August the 9th, 2021 board meeting. And this is some that had been canceled for two board meetings. Any, do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez. Here a second.
Second.
Second by Gabriel. Any questions? If not, I ask for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. The next one is approval of the August 23rd board minutes. And this is also one that we had tabled because there was to be some changes. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Gabe. Here a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any questions? Any concerns? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Approval of September the 20th minutes, and this was for the last meeting that we had last week. This is the meeting that should have been the 13th, and it was changed to the 20th.
Mr. Cordova, do you all have them in your packet? Okay.
Is there questions? Can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any comments, any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Use of facility, Cobre Cafeteria. Joyce?
So, Mr. Cordova, we still did not get the full paperwork from the class of 23, so we do need to table that because we haven't gotten everything we need from them.
So we need a motion to table that. Can we have a motion to table it?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Holguin. Second?
The second.
Any comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. I like the hammer. Okay, the next one is the scope of work search of superintendent by Mrs. Jackie Riley.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Cordova, members of the board. In the last board meeting that we had, I had presented the scope of work for you, and there was a recommendation for there to be an addition for it to include in each section, provide updates to the board members. So I took the scope of work exactly how I had presented and added to each section, provide updates to the board members. I did think upon reviewing this myself that it did sound a little bit repetitive. So at this time, I want to present to you, I came up with something else that I think looks a little bit better. It's the exact same thing without the addition of the provide updates to the board. But in the description, I have added provide superintendent search consulting services with continual updates to the board members to include the following. I know there was a little bit of a worry that the board members would be left out within the sections that the search consulting company would do. So I'm assuming that that would take care of it. I would like to show it to you, and I've made copies for everybody.
So you're saying that we should vote on the one that you are passing out right now?
Or you all can decide which one you would prefer to vote on.
Go ahead, Joyce.
So once again, it is the exact same thing that you wanted, except with that addition to the description, which I think would take place of having it be repeated each and every time in that section.
Any questions or comments, board members? The last time we voted on this one, assuming that because it said that it was a draft copy, right?
Right.
And this one is the same thing except what you added now?
Right, I added that to the description and I took off draft. So this was what you were going to be voting on this time.
Mr. Guadiana, she's reviewing that you have in hand, but she's gonna go, suggesting go on with the one that's there on your table, on the table.
Okay, there were some things that I thought could be added to it.
That, she added some stuff, let her explain
Okay,
to,
okay, that's fine.
explain to, sorry.
So at the last board meeting, we went over the scope of work. I know that there was a little bit of worry on whether or not the consulting company would be updating the board. So what the board had suggested is that I add to each section, provide updates to the board members. So you have that in your packet, but upon reviewing it, I thought it sounded a little bit redundant. It was very repetitive. So I have provided you with a copy of what I suggest to the board. And all I did was I added, it's the exact same thing that you guys had voted on, but I did add provide superintendent search consulting services with continual updates to the board members to include the following. So I would assume that that would cover adding the updates to the members constantly in those sections.
The other board members had no question. Mr. Guadiana, do you have a question or concern?
Yes. Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to suggest that in beginning on the first bullet related to planning search for and setting the criteria, that we establish a citizen advisory committee. That's, I think, a commitment we've alluded to previously. And accordingly, then, in the advertising part of that, we would add a bullet that says set a schedule for citizen advisory committee.
So where are you, so there's two separate items?
No, it continues on down. Rather than just saying establish a citizen committee, kind of put it into where it is, it works.
And I'm sorry, where would you like for it to be added on?
First, on the plans to search and setting the criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Put as perhaps the last bullet, establish a citizen advisory committee. then, and then on advertising, set a schedule for the Citizen Advisory Committee meetings and review. Then on the screening part, in the last bullet, just add to that where it says, assist the board members in selecting the final candidates with citizen, and this is the part that would be added, with citizen committee input. And I would suggest that under screening again, take the second bullet, move it down to the third one, and that's to conduct reference checks. We probably need to do that only on the finalists.
So add the conduct reference checks to the interview of finalist?
Yeah, and review, remove it from the screening section. And the last part, the selection, it's looking like select the candidate. Almost looks like a decision made by the consultant. And so I wanted to put down recommendation with the citizen committee and the consultant to at least include at least 3 candidates for the board to make the selection, final selection.
Okay, so how would you like for it to read?
Recommend, let's see, together with the citizen committee, the consultant should recommend at least 3 finalists for the board to consider for selection.
Okay.
And on that part of selection, the third bullet is establish performance objectives for the superintendent. I believe that should be in the first section where it says planning the search for planning the search and setting the criteria, rather than at the very end.
I think that's written there so that once the correct me if I'm wrong, but once the superintendent is selected, that performance objectives are set with the superintendent that's selected.
With the actual one that you've selected, then they can establish what is expected of them.
I think it's an important evaluative criteria. If they know what the performance objectives are going to be and we can assess their responses to them before they get to the final selection, that's probably the meatiest part of the criteria that we should have in interviewing and selecting the candidates. Certainly when it gets to the point of final selection, there'll be an intense amount of communication, and it won't be limited just to the selection. It'll be regarding the contract, and it should be written into the contract. So I would recommend that part, establish performance objectives for the superintendent, be a bullet in the first section, which is planning to search and setting the criteria. That is setting the criteria, in my opinion.
Okay.
My thought in the changes that we have suggested is that we table this so that it can be, a final copy can be looked at, and I guess it would be for the next board meeting. Does everybody agree with that?
I would hope that we could make the changes here and limit it to that that's been proposed, it's been written down. If we're all in favor of that, postponing it another week might not be to an advantage, but that's my opinion. And I'll agree with what the board wants. May I comment?
Go ahead.
That's not been the practice. The practice has been when there's a recommendation been made and there's been a recommended change to it, that can be incorporated and go forward with the minutes reflecting the changes that were recommended. Last week was kind of an anomaly when we take a document because it was a draft and say, okay, we finalized the draft. I think that was an anomaly, and in this case, she's proposing, and the board is well within its right to make recommended changes and approve those changes without going through another iteration of seeing it again. And considering the time frame that we've already lagged in getting this out, it would be, I think, expedient to get it out sooner than later. And again, that would be my opinion.
And I was under the impression that it was already voted on, so the only changes that we were going to do was to add the provide updates to the board members. That's what we had voted on last week. So that was the only changes, and that's why I recommended to add provide the updates, but I reworded it, so that was gonna be the only change. And that's what we were voting on right now.
Go ahead, Mr. Ogden.
Yeah, so I do like the changes that Gilbert's proposed, and I would like to take your recommendation, Mr. Cordova, that we table this until next meeting to look at a more current draft.
That gives me no choice. That's what the board wishes to do, is table it. If I can have a motion to table this one? Motion by Mr. Holguin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other comments? Any other comments? If not, all in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Well, it's tabled. On to the next one, Jackie.
So the next section is the legal notice, so there is no need to even review the legal notice because we haven't agreed on a scope of work. So we'll wait on the scope of work, or would you like for me to present it now?
Should be the table.
So we should table this one too. Can I have a motion to table this one?
So moved.
Table by Mr. Holguin, second by Mr. Gomez. Any comments? Any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riley.
Finance.
Okay, Ms. Holguin?
Thank you, Jackie.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President and members of the board. We met in the Finance Committee on the following items. We met on Thursday. What was the date? The 23rd? September 23rd. We met in Finance on a budget adjustment for the ARP CARES 3, which is the final 1/3 of the CARES 3. The application has been approved in total through the Public Education Department. They had initially asked us to budget 2/3, which you had already approved. And then this is the final 1/3 to add to the current budget that's in place for the CARES 3. There was a discussion in finance to make sure that the items on the bar were consistent with what we had originally budgeted the funds for. So I asked Ms. Varela to recommend.
Mr. Cordova, I recommend approval of the ARP bar as presented by Ms. Hoagie.
You have heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez. Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any comments?
Is it possible to get a presentation on the data that you've provided, so that way the public can kind of see the expenditures, because it's a significant amount of money?
We did present it in a board meeting when we went over the application. I think I went over it pretty much line by line, but, let's see. I don't have Okay, so under the second, third, we do have funding set aside for after-school tutoring, recovery services, looking at possibly hiring an EA for large classroom, extended learning time. Now, let's see, we have K-5 plus salary and benefits. We have some additional money built in for remote learning salaries. We do have some students that are on remote learning. That's to support the staff that are covering those students. We do have counselor built in for 2 years of funding. We have internet, school supplies, clothing, hygiene products for 2 years built in for students with low income.
Can you put the spreadsheet up?
We don't have it. We don't have it in a.
I'd have to get my computer. Are you talking the spreadsheet that Ms. Terry's going over? Do you have it electronically? No, we don't have it electronically.
Then we can probably forego, because it'd be hard to follow just verbally, so we can forego the explanation.
I believe when we presented it, the application this way, I had put the spreadsheet up there, and I did go over each of the items individually. That was at a previous board meeting.
That's true, but for those that are watching that may not have been in attendance, it would have been helpful. But next time, maybe we can do something substantive for the presentation rather than just our votes.
So we have a
Do I go to the next one?
We have a motion and a second on that item. Any other comments? Any other comments? We'll need to make a vote on it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. You move on to B on that one?
So on B, we have the initial award on the Family Income Index, which is a new fund. That fund in your packet will show that it was awarded to Bayard Elementary under the Cobre schools for $100,926. We met with the principal. It was decided that we could use intervention services and also the services of an additional EA to help in the lower grades at Bayard that have need of additional assistance for teachers. We had since, when we talked with the finance, we had since advertised for an interventionist and an EA, at which time we had no applications. It was discussed in finance that because the bar is due to the PED by October 15th, that we would go ahead and submit the bar as it's presented for 2 positions, the interventionist and the EA. If necessary, and we have to change the scope to fund something else besides the interventionist, we will come back to the board with a transfer adjustment rather than an initial budget. And so as we discussed in finance, that it would be better for the board to go ahead and review it now and process it through so that we can get budget authority to, for that fund. And then if we have to change it, we could change it once it was in discussion with the Bayard Elementary principal. If we can't get an interventionist and a educational assistant. And of this date, we still don't have applications, right, Diana? No applications for those positions yet. Okay, so we, Ms. Varela would,
So I recommend approval of the Family Income Index bar as presented by Ms. Holking.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other questions? Any comments? Go ahead.
A comment, the discussion at the committee meeting, finance committee meeting, went over the criteria, and the criteria will remain the same regardless of what we do. And this does meet the criteria that's being asked for, and that's 1/3 of it go to evidence-based learning and English literacy, another 1/3 for math in the same way, and the other 1/3 go for case management. And the positions that they're looking for do, and so if there is a need to change that because we're not able to get qualified people as a interventionist in both math and English and then the IA, then the change has to fall within that criteria. So it's a very limited as far as its purpose, and approving it now will not cause any deviation from the requirements that are going forward.
correct.
And I do just want to say that we did have one applicant internally, but when talking with Ms. Chavita from the Bayard Elementary principal, we had decided that we didn't want to move anybody out of the current classroom position to fill an interventionist position because then it creates a void somewhere else. And so we're not moving on that at this time.
Any other comments? If not, can we have a vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. It brings you to the review of bills for August 20.
The last item is the review of bills for August, and we had quite a lengthy discussion on review of bills and the process in the finance meeting. And as we reviewed, we found that it almost seems like we're backwards in asking for a review of bills that have already been paid. So what we have done is we've met with the finance team, Ms. Varela and I, and we're coming up with a process so that we can present the bills that are going to be ready to be paid and to the finance. It gets reviewed there, and then it's brought to the board as the recommendation to approve the payments. That'll help us review, checks that are going out prior to them actually going out. We can review against what the scope of what the intended expenditure was for, whether the dates and so forth, and the vendors are approved. So at this time, it is going to take a little bit of a process because the way our system is set up right now, it's not, the AP system is kind of set up the way it was set up when the previous finance director, so we just kind of continued the process as it's been. Currently, what's in your packet are the actual bills that were paid in August, and if you have any questions on those, I don't know if you want to continue to vote on it. The process is going to take us a few months to change, but we will start to make those changes.
The changes will be happening, but to be fully able to present all the bills before payment, that'll take a little bit longer. So it's not that the whole process is going to take months. We will start slowly, and we will kind of have a combination in the beginning. of bills to be paid and bills paid until we catch up with where we need to be.
Because right now, if you look, these are August bills that are being presented. So September bills have already been paid as well because we're close to the end of the month in September. So they've already been paid as well. So we'll start to look at, how the October cycle, because, and the reason that we're talking about, how to change it is that there's different categories of expenditures. You have your utilities that are due by a certain date no matter what. And those are already set up as encumbrances and, to expend out. And if we were to wait for the board meeting to approve them, we'll be late on our expenditures because they don't fall in. They fall on the 15th of the month. So that doesn't give enough time for the AP person to receive the bill, review the bill, enter the bill, then get it approved and out by the 15th, because you meet on the second Monday, which generally it's around the 11th. So it's gonna hit, and the bills get to the office right around the 5th. So it's not enough of a turnaround time. So that's on utilities. The contractual people that we have on contract for ancillary services, their timesheets, and need to be reviewed and signed off on by the project coordinator, and then they're reviewed for payment. They have to have all the documentation before she can actually enter them into the system. And they, by contract, they are to be paid by the 10th because that's how their contracts were already written. So we would miss their payday, their actual payday. So we don't want to do that to the vendors either, by changing that kind of thing. So that's why it's going to take a little bit of a cycle to make sure that we're cycling in the bills before they're due, so that we get them paid when the contractual part of it is, we don't break the contract by not paying them on time. And then the other thing is making sure that we don't pay bills for supplies, materials that are shipped in until we review the packing material. So if they don't have packing slips and we don't have all the information, it may or may not miss. So those are some of the things that we've got to work out. Okay? So I don't know if you want to recommend the review bills as they are.
Another comment, again, coming from my observations at the Finance Committee meeting. This is, George Esqueda participated for the first time, and this was actually a question that he had raised. It had been raised prior before, but the reaction to it was extraordinary. This is a monumental step for the finance to get in front of this and start saying, yes, we need to do that. I think this is one of the biggest steps I've seen in coming into compliance with our fiscal responsibility. And so it's going to take a little time to work out, and that I understand, but I'm very excited that it is going in the right direction.
I had a little comment. In doing this process, you have got to keep in mind that this doesn't slow the payment to the people that we're buying merchandise from.
Right.
Because in the past, we have had some people that have wanted their pay quicker, or they've had to wait, so hopefully this won't make them wait any longer.
Right,
And-
and those are the things, I'm sorry.
That's
Those are the things that we may want to make our top priority, is that we don't slow down or we don't miss payments on anybody.
So in looking at that, we decided that we're going to have a finance committee meeting twice a month and probably bring that to the board twice a month so that we do not get to that situation.
So you recommend,
I recommend approval of the bills as presented by Ms. Holguin.
you've heard the recommendation, do I hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Holguin, second? Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other comments?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, there being no other comments or questions, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
At that time, that would bring us to update on unfinished business, and there was none. And at this time, we have public input on agenda items. Any public input on the agenda items? Any public input on agenda items? There being none, we'll move on.
Okay, under administration, we do have Misty Pugmire from El Grito Early Learning Center, who will be providing a presentation to us, after which I'll go over the MOU. So we have been working with Misty continually. We've had multiple meetings to get to the point where we're at to have an MOU in place. So we are really excited about that, and I'll let Misty.
Absolutely, we're excited about it. My mic is on. It's been 5 years in the works. I have presented it multiple times, but I am excited that you have put an administrative team at the top of your district that is ready to move forward with this. What it means to both agencies means that we are doing what's best for families and children. For the last couple of years, the children that have chosen to go to El Grito have received if they had an IEP, did not receive services. And because we are a nonprofit private entity, we would just tell them when they registered that if you choose to go to school with us, you would not receive services. Now, that's no longer the case. They will receive services, they're gonna get their testing done. So that's great for the families that have chosen to go to El Grito. We have also worked together to put a classroom. We're going to split a classroom at Hurley. We're going to put a classroom at Santa Clara. And Mrs. Barella offered to do another half a classroom. But I think we're gonna kind of get into it as a slow start because we're at the beginning of the school year. But what that means is that it comes to not only great for the kids and families, the families that choose to drop off at where their other children go to school can do that. We'll be able to service all children in our community, not just the ones that have IEPs. And on the other end of that, as we began to move forward with this, I think that numbers are pretty close to between $80,000 and $100,000 per classroom. This will save the Cobre district because the 3-year-olds were funded by general funds. They now will be funded by us, and so those funds can be able to move somewhere else. As we move forward with this, the teachers that are also teaching those 3Y classrooms and the aides that are in those classrooms will be able to be utilized in other positions within the district, as we will be able to fill those voids in those 3-year-old classrooms. Our progress is, at this point, we've got, like I said, half a classroom coming in at Hurley, and a full classroom coming in Central. We are waiting on licensing, and we have to do background checks as well. We're going to roll in employees into this school district that have been a part of El Grito already, so that they're very well diversed in what needs to be done in a classroom. In the past, and we've talked about this a lot of your Title I funds were tied to being connected to the local Head Start, and now you are again, so Title I funds are no longer at risk. Let me see. Where are we headed, Joyce, besides that?
I think you got all of that. So what'll happen with the 3Y as we move forward? So currently, our 3Y that we have enrolled in our district, we pay for the staff out of Title I and IDEA B, because we do not get funded for our 3Y kids. We only get funded for the students in 3Y that have an IEP. And that's why Misty says we would be able to save our district money, because then those teachers would be funded under El Grito going forward. And we will be able to service the students. The other advantage that we have under Head Start is the way that our 3Y program runs. The students have to be 3 on September 1st or August 30th or 31st, whatever date that is,
By
at
midnight.
midnight. Okay, and unless they have an IEP, then they can join the 3Y program the day they turn 3. But under the Head Start program, we'll be able to take even typically developing kids the day that they turn 3 into the program.
So it's going to broaden your district's 3Y program all the way across. The other thing is they will be dually enrolled, any child with an IEP. So the funds that you receive for the children that have IEPs, you will still receive those because they will be duly enrolled and serviced by your district. Do you have any questions of me? Because I would love to
So
talk
our
about it.
target to start at Hurley is October,
About right after fall break.
okay.
We're pending licensing in those departments. I was missing some fire drill reports to do licensing, but licensing is ready to come in. The rooms must be set up, and your staff did that about 2 weeks ago in the one, so we'll start with that half a classroom, and we'll add a teacher. So for the rest of this year, that classroom will have 2 teachers in it, as well as an aide, which is going to drop the ratio in those 3Y classrooms. As a Head Start classroom, we are required, no matter where the classroom is, to have 2 people in that room. So say at Santa Clara, we only have 8 children. We will provide 2 staff members to those 8 children. You also have a criteria of children with IEPs. You can only have 4 to a classroom. And with our children, we have more children coming through the system that are on IEPs. We're not overloading classrooms. We'll be able to split those classrooms and put them in different rooms where they're actually getting the instruction that they need on their IEP, and we are meeting the mandates that come down from PED as well as IDEA.
So our target for the central classroom, we talked about late November, early December, or even January. So we don't have the exact date yet. What we're going to do right now is we're going to start advertising so that we can start picking up kids. But based on what has to happen and the things that El Grito has going on right now, we can't have an earlier start date than that. So we are working together to try to make that happen for our families. So we will get the paperwork out to Central so that we can start recruiting families for that program.
Because I know most of you realize that we not only stepped into this, but we just took over Grant County's Child Care Center that formerly was Baby Boot Camp. So our plate is pretty well stacked, but we are absolutely, I was not jumping to be able to come here and be able to put this together with this Cobre team. It's exciting.
Thank you, Ms. Broadmeyer. We look forward in working together
Yes, sir.
and coming up with a solution that's good for both of us.
I think we have the solution, Mr. Smith.
So you do have the MOU in front of you. The MOU does reflect starting October 1st or a little bit later, as soon as we're ready to get that Hurley classroom going. We will start first with that braided classroom at Hurley, and then the other thing that it reflects is the classroom at Central that we will be creating new.
Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, you had a board member who's got a question.
Yes, Mr. Guadiana.
Okay, so thank you. I'm glad to see you here, and it's this is a required agreement, partnership, and we've been out of compliance for 4 years.
5, almost 5.
5 years, and at that time, we've been jeopardizing our Title I money, which is in excess of $1 million, I believe. No? Okay. Anyway, and I want to thank Ms. Zamora, one of the instructors in the district that actually helps have this communication start, and that is I think setting us in a great direction. I especially like the special ed aspect of it and the IEP aspect of it, one of the things that we've seen in the district where the behaviors, the conditions continue year after year after year after year, and hopefully bringing outside eyes can bring a better coordination and hope to improve that. I had a number of questions regarding the contract, though, if we can go into that. Okay, one is that, and this may not, it says number 3 says the budget, the in-kind budget was.
Yeah. So one of the things that we realized today, you do have it attached, but I was talking with Antonio today and telling him that we did
It's right in
forget.
front of you.
Yeah, it is in your packet.
It's
Should
right
have
there
been
on
in
his
your
desk.
packet.
Okay, oh, okay, that's going to.
Yeah, but we did forget some people on here because we targeted Central. We forgot to add principal, custodian, and some other things for Hurley, so we need to go back and add that. So we will be revising the in-kind, and I had already let Misty know that.
Yes.
Okay, then on page 3, it says, we're only going to do the 2 classrooms which you explained. And when you
Yes.
say Benny Trujillo site in Santa Clara, is that?
We already have a site there with
Oh,
a
okay.
classroom there that's already running in Santa Clara. But we are adding the classroom in the Central Elementary site to that. So the one at the Benny Trujillo Center now will receive services where they were not receiving services. We have 17 children registered in that program right now. Some of them need to be screened and need to be tested. And they did not have that availability till now, and now we are moving forward. And like Mr. Guadiana said, you said we've been in the past. We were sitting at a meeting with this group the other day, and I said, we are not in the past. We are moving forward. We're not looking backwards. We're not looking at what was done in the past. We are absolutely moving forward in what's best interest for both entities.
And along those lines, the transportation that you talk about in the contract, is that from the schools to the site, or is that from the homes
So
to the site?
Cobre will provide transportation for students who have an IEP, whether it's at the Benny Trujillo site or Central Elementary, because we will be servicing those students. We will be getting funded for those students, so we will provide the transportation. But again, only students that have an IEP.
So those that don't,
Parents transport them to the
Parents
site.
transport them, and they transport to all of our sites. So this is nothing new.
okay.
Mr. Guadiana, we took this IEP and
From
tweaked
Silver's.
it for Cobre, but we've been working under it for the last 3 years at Silver and tweaked it several times back and forth to see what works best and what didn't work. And so it was easy to be able to transpose it right into here with your team and to be able to tweak it to make sure that we still met all the needs and didn't have all the messes we've had in the past to make it work, but it's absolutely, we went over it.
What I say is as you start doing the classrooms and stuff, keep us updated, give us reports.
Oh, we'd
on
love
the-
to.
on our board meetings so that we can stay on board.
Okay.
And provide to the public also.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'd love it. Thank you for the opportunity to
The
speak.
the last question I have
Okay.
is this going to be publicized to the students and the parents so that they can be aware of what to anticipate in November, December, or January?
We
We
started
are because-
advertising.
Yeah, and yes, and because, again, we need to recruit students because it's a brand-new classroom. So we're not pulling kids out of any other classroom in Central. We're starting a new classroom, so we have to advertise to them so that we can recruit students.
And we're just adding a teacher to your classroom in Hurley because the ratio is high. The number of children with IEPs in that classroom is also high. So working with your team, we looked at all the buildings and your infrastructure to see where would be the best places to start, and as well as with your special ed department to see where the upcoming IEPs were, to make sure that we were meeting at least, we're not going to say the next year's worth of it, but at least the next few months to make sure that we can stay ahead of this across the board.
closing comment is that, again, this is another monumental step made in bringing the school
Absolutely.
into compliance and doing a good service for our kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're
Thank you.
excited for our families moving forward. Thank you, Misty.
Joyce, did you have an update, or was that your, because I see the next item was,
So those were, they kind of went hand in hand. We kind of went over the MOU together with that. So
okay,
the next item under administration, we were asked to add a discussion on a possible board retreat.
yes,
I know we did have one, July, correct? The end of July, we had one board retreat?
yes. That was one of the suggestions that was on there, on the board retreat. I'll open it now to a discussion. Board members?
This is an opportunity, it's a board retreat with the focus, including a performance evaluation. Elections are coming up soon, and the makeup of the board may change so that the information needed to make an evaluation may not be present. And so this is like a fleeting opportunity to have that assessment made, and it would be a good effort and another monumental step in coming in compliance with what we're required to do. It is an annual requirement. It hasn't happened, at least during my tenure, and probably well before that. I've never seen any documentation of such. So I would recommend that we go forward and continue the momentum to making strides in becoming compliant with our responsibilities.
Mr. Willie, I know we've had two since you've been on board. The first one was over at the training center for Bayard Elementary.
That was not
that
an
was-
assessment of
No, it was a retreat.
It was a board retreat, yes, but it was not an assessment on our
No, it's a
performance.
retreat.
Yes.
And then one over here at the library, it was a retreat also.
The one in July.
Yeah.
That was a board retreat.
That was regarding a specific program, not in terms
It
of the
was
overall.
working on creating positive school culture throughout our district, starting at the top all the way down to the schools. That was the
It was
focus
a
of it.
retreat. I agree, it was a retreat, but not in the scope of what it is we're trying to talk about. Nowhere near the scope that what we're trying to talk about in terms of the performance of the board and the schools.
Mr. Gomez, do you have any comments on a retreat?
I have no comment.
Mr. Holguin?
Really no comments, just questions like when would we
Okay.
plan this for and what's the duration?
Okay, let me tell you, what was discussed last week a little bit, that our president brought up the information that he said, first of all, for a retreat, we would have to get somebody to run it for us. And what he said is, we need to pick a date when all board members are there for the whole duration of it, which both of those things would be kind of a problem at this time. And I'll tell you my comments on it. We have a couple of items coming up that I think we should wait for. The first thing that we've got is we've got the SB 9 election. The next thing that we've got is we've got 3 board members that are running for re-election. 2 that are running for re-election and 1 that's not running, but there's some new people going to come on, and I would suggest that we save this retreat for after the elections. I do sympathize with you. I think that an evaluation of ourselves has been due and long overdue, and we haven't done that, and I sympathize with that. But that's my feeling on it. As far as having one, you know, and I don't know who we would have to contact. Somebody from out of town. In the past, we have had a lady from Santa Fe that did it. I don't remember her name, and then Vicky Smith did it, and there's several people that go around that do that as a service. But that's the way I feel, and this is not a voting item, but we need to kick it around a little more and probably put it on the agenda for next meeting again.
Can it be put on as an action item next time?
that the action item and what's put on the agenda is solely to the president and to our superintendent. So if you would, you know, reach out to both of them, they're the ones to make the decision on the agenda.
I have a question on the facilitator. Does it have to be, I mean, what are the requirements for the facilitator? Do they just have to be somebody that's good at that? Does it have to be somebody that has experience in facilitating a board retreat? What is that?
I would say I don't know that it's a professional retreat person, but it's a person that has done it before, and then a person that is not biased to any of the board members or anything that's going on in the, you know, somebody is going to come in and run it effectively and make decisions that are in the best interest of the school and the kids and the parents.
Mr. Cordova, we did have, Paul Aguilar came in this week to work on the 5-year master plan. And I know that he does have some experience with this, so I did ask him for some recommendations. As far as facilitators, he did tell me that he was going to, he says, I know of some, but let me think about it and get back to you. So I do need to follow up with him to see if he has any recommendations. So I just wanted to be prepared in case that was something that we did decide to go forward with. I wanted to have.
Well, if it's put on the agenda next time for a vote, we can discuss that at that time and make that agreement on that. Is what I say. Agree? Okay. Okay, the next thing is the superintendent's report.
Okay. Under superintendent's report, you know, we feel like the admin team and I met the other day, and we feel like we've been getting a lot of negative press, but we have a lot of amazing things that are happening out in the schools. So one of the things that we want to do, and we're really working hard at all the different schools and our different departments to create a positive school culture. So with us not being able to go have our board meetings at the different schools, we thought it would be important to bring the schools to us so that they can start presenting on some of the amazing things that are happening. So we have Mr. Corey, who will be presenting some highlights on the positive things that are happening at San Lorenzo Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. I was excited. You know, as principals, we love bragging on our schools, and so I promised to be pretty quick here, but we put together a quick PowerPoint because a lot of times the smiles on kids' faces, sometimes we have to be reminded why we do this business, right? And I know we get bogged down a lot of times with the, you know, the day-to-day running of a district, but I think what's important is remembering what crawls us out of bed in the morning is making a young student smile, or actually it's the other way around. I think they make us smile more than anything. So go ahead, Victor. One of the things that happened last year during COVID is we had many staff members that were required to come to the buildings, and so the secretary, the librarian, the custodian, myself, and I knew they were going to have a lot of spare time on their hands. So what I decided is I said, let's do a cool project for our kids for when they return back. And I know our staff thought I was crazy, but I said, we're going to paint the hallway black. And that was the beginning of our project. And so we went down the hallway in the school and painted it entirely black. And then I told him, I said, we got to get the first part done, and then you'll understand my vision from there. So I got to brag on a couple of the ladies there. They have no real professional art experience. And so I know they're working on our pictures here, but we started murals down the hallway, and teachers got to pick their different things in their areas that, you know, were important to them. So the picture here, Miss Jones, Miss Carpenter, and Miss Trujillo, if you can see, I asked them to stand by some of their favorite work that they did. And you're able to see the pictures. Some of you have been to the school, that they're all the way down the entire hallway of our student hallway. And different things for different classrooms. So it was just amazing. They put a massive amount of work into it. It's still work in progress because I see them running down the hall when they have an extra little bit of time and adding in different components. But what was really neat is when the kids got back to school and they got to see it all, just their reactions and all the educational things that we could tie it back into as well. So go ahead to the next one. Here's some of our crew, and one of the things I wanted to add, it's hard to see in that second, third grade picture. You can see those horseshoes along the floor there. We had to mark our schools out for social distancing, so we just decided to have fun with it. So all over our school, we painted all kinds of things. So if we did horseshoes, and then I think that's cowboy hats are the 6 feet apart. We did flowers, we did alphabet, we did all kinds of things. The second, third grade class, the mural they're standing in front of, which their teacher had picked, it's a book they read in their class, and it's about a wolf pack. And so that's something that their class does all year. They're referred to as the wolf pack. So it's one of the reasons why they picked the mural for that wall as well. Our kindergartners over here on the other side, this is one of their dress-up days. Go ahead to the next one. First graders, we just grabbed them together just to grab some pictures of our kiddos, and our 4th and 5th graders on the other side there. So here's pre-K, and congratulations to San Lorenzo and Central Pre-K. I know you didn't get the presentation tonight, but I think they were the winners of the float during our homecoming parade. So there's one of the pictures there, and then on the other side, that's a little science experiment that pre-K was doing. So every time I'm walking around the school, I'm always taking pictures. So these 2 students were just having a riot. They were mixing colors. I heard in budgeting here a second ago, interventionists. I have 2 amazing interventionists. I have 2 retired teachers. So this one's Miss Connie Perez in this picture, and then I also have Pat Ross. These ladies, it's probably one of the most priceless things that we have in our schools, in my opinion. They're able to sit down with these kids, do one-on-one interventions, sometimes in small groups, and the progress we're seeing out of these kids is just absolutely unbelievable. So I just wanted to throw kudos out to these ladies and to these students. The students are working unbelievably hard, and they make it fun. If you see the picture on the right, the young man's doing letters in sand in a box, and so they try to make it as fun as possible for these kiddos. Dress-up days. We have had more dress-up days. So at the end of last year, we decided the kids missed out on all kinds of stuff, so we ran everything. We did every holiday at the end of the year. And so I just threw in some pictures. I think it's Earth Day. I don't know if it was 80s Day. The young lady with the glasses, it was dressed up as a 100-year-old day. The 2 sisters over there, it was Superheroes Day. They just love it. And it just creates such a neat environment in the school on those days. And honestly, we really almost have 100% participation with all our kids. So it's just kind of a fun time. Here's a couple kiddos, Amy Biebel there with her saddle. It's neat when these kids participate in activities outside of our school. And I know a massive amount of work goes into, I know they do gymkhana, rodeo, and all of those things. But when we celebrate, when we see these things, and we try to get pictures of our kiddos and post them around our school. Here's another one. I'm going to skip the middle picture. I'll go to the end one. The young man in that picture came to me and literally looked me in the eyes and said, "Mr. Corey, I can't read." And my comment always back to him is, "Not yet." And it's always neat to see the light bulb click, because this is a young man, if you can see the smile on his face, I have seen him drag himself off that bus just defeated so many times, and he floats off the bus now. And what he's showing you is his chart there is every time he reads a book and he gets his 100 on his AR test, which is a little comprehension test that they take, he gets to fill in a line, and that's 25 books there that he's showing you. And he's probably, since the beginning of the year, I bet we're about at 40 right now, books that he has read. And he's read them to me. He reads them at home to his mom. It is amazing. And again, I go back and say, we have to remind ourselves sometimes this is why we do our jobs, because to see those light bulbs, and he is now reading everything that he can get his hands on. So it was exciting is we had a new student come just this last week, and the picture in the middle is Ethan sitting there, and he's actually doing flashcards with the new students going over sight words. And to see that happen was just priceless. So these are the kind of things that we're doing all the time, and I know you guys get bogged down with some of the stuff, but this is why I crawl out of bed in the morning. So Victor, next one.
Before you go on, I just want to say Ms. Davis and I happened to be at San Lorenzo on the day that he came in to show his chart to Mr. Corey, and Ms. Davis, I think, left there crying. We were so happy for him. We just were so excited. So we all got to celebrate with him.
That's awesome. Here's just a couple pictures. Our outdoor classroom, we've been utilizing that quite a bit. Just getting the kids outside, get them spread out, get the masks off. Here's just a couple activities we've done. The kids out at San Lorenzo, we're always having a good time. And then last one, you always got to throw some scores in, right? So just as an administrator, I've been doing this 10 plus years, and no fault to anyone, but these are the worst test scores we've ever came in with. It's been a kind of a rough start, and it's taken a while, and just as a little FYI here, that August and September score, there was only about 2 weeks of instruction in between them. So we were a little late on August, and then we hit September pretty quick. But I just ran in. We have a little data wall there, and I just ran in and grabbed numbers really quick. I grabbed 2 out of each classroom. And if you look down the August, these are all percentile scores. And if you look at kinder, like the first one, they scored 25 percentile in August. And already in September, they're at 76 percentile. So I know no one wanted COVID, and it caused a mess, but I think if we really get after it, we're going to get these kids right back where they belong. And you can look down the line there, a 9 to a 28, 28s to 40s. And then if you look down to third grade, there's a 99 to 99. And that's sometimes you have to keep growing to keep getting the 99s. You can't just stay at the same place. So sometimes that's a problem we'll usually have towards the end of the year, but really great to have it early. And then, you can look across there. Like a 5th grader went from the 5th percentile to the 68th percentile. So I think administrators will probably report to you that we kind of had a little bit of a rough start, and that's honest. But I really feel like our kids are just hitting the groove now. And I really got to commend our staff, our teachers. I know it's been hard on them. I know one of the things that I've told my staff, I said, what you were good at is making high kids higher. And they haven't ever been in the situation when they're working with kids that, are considerably lower. So it's kind of a new event for at least the staff for us at San Lorenzo. So it's kind of a new challenge, and it's been stressful for them. And I got to commend them. They have worked amazingly hard, and the kids have worked hard. So I just wanted to throw in numbers really quick, too, to show the amazing stuff that's happening in our schools. I know it's just not San Lorenzo. It's in all our schools. There are kids learning. They're smiling. They're having a great time. And I think that's what we should be celebrating all the time. I know you guys as a board sometimes get stuck with some of the negative things that happen, but hopefully we can do quick presentations like this and show you all the amazing things that are happening. And we have amazing staff, and we have amazing students. And, I commend our admin team as well. I think we're working amazing together, and our district is definitely going places. So thanks for inviting me this evening, and I promise I'd be fast, but I could probably brag for hours on the team and the crew. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. Keep up the good work. One of the things that I would like to see, and hopefully it can happen here in the near future as we keep moving and progressing in this thing, hopefully we can continue like we were before, that we'd have one of the meetings at the school, and that way they can sing and dance on what they're achieving, and hopefully that would be some help for the kids and the staff and the administration and everybody, but hopefully we can work towards that. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I visited with Mr. Corey, following the protocols for doing so, a couple of weeks ago. And for the first time, I saw something that was unseen as far as my experience. And there was a child that came in while we were talking with his teacher, and I handed Mr. Corey some papers, and Mr. Corey looked at it. He knew what it was right away, and it was the accomplishments that the little girl had made in reading. And Mr. Corey says, well, you know, I'm not just going to read this one paper. It says you've been doing good. I want you to read the sonnet read the story that she was, as she had just finished, and he read it to her. She read it to him, and Mr. Corey would ask questions about what this means, what that means, and she would look at him like, don't you know? And it was, at the end of that, we both were, gave her accolades, and she was very modest, and he then said, go back there. And usually that means bad things, but she was so excited. Her eyes popped up, and she went out and she got a gift from that. And throughout that visit, it wasn't, discipline is the wrong word to use when you describe their students. If you were to say disciplined, that means they're just obedient and they're doing the things they are. They're cooperative. I mean, they see something happening and they go help. I saw them as they were helping unload the stuff for the what do you call it, the pantry. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing but enthusiasm in that school. And for that, and you've been consistently delivering high grades for years and years and years. A lot of that is assumed to be because of the class-teacher ratio. Certainly that helps. There's no doubt that helps. But I think you've established a form of management that gets down to the very community and inspires rather than goes in the principals only dealing with the kids that need discipline. And so you made the comment that everything's the same, but I beg to differ in that you've established something that's extraordinary. And I want to credit you with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment. A lot of things, this kickboard training that we have that's coming out district-wide, I really feel is amazing for every school, and every person involved in our district. Because when I sit and talk with the facilitator, we share really the same values on how things operate. And so I'm putting my plug in for our kickboard and for the training and for everyone to participate in that, because it talks about how you can still get along and still get things done and do it in such a positive way. So I know that was one of our board retreats, and I know we were kind of heading down that road, but I think that's an excellent thing for all of us.
Thank you.
One final comment. Your presentation was very good, but particularly when you bring in the statistics, that gives us a good idea of what's succeeding and what's not succeeding. And that differs from the other presentations that have been made, where kids will come and dance and or read or do plays kind of stuff. I think having the statistics there should be a critical part of that school's presentation, and I hope to continue with a format such as what you just provided.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Joyce?
We won't have the homecoming events presentation, but I do want to acknowledge the homecoming parade winners. First place, we had Central and San Lorenzo Elementary Schools Pre-K. In second place, we had Bayard Elementary School Pre-K. And in third place, we had the Special Ed Department. Elvis and Miss CHS came in third place. There was a lot of people at the parade, so it was a very well-received event. Couple of other highlights, we do have Mr. Edward Peña, who has been placed on the the state ambassador. He was appointed, so he will be representing educators in helping to make decisions for the state as we move forward. Mr. Nelson Diaz is in Albuquerque today receiving his award. He received the Athletic Director of the Year, so we will have him at the next meeting. We will have a certificate to present to him as well. Mr. Corey did mention the kickboard PD, so we do have professional development this Friday on October 1st. We will be doing test security training. We also have, all the schools have met individually with their steering committee with the presenter from kickboard. So what they're gonna do now is that steering committee will be rolling out what they came up with and soliciting additional input from the staff at their school. So they're gonna be rolling that out school-wide. We also have Sunday training that'll be offered for our special ed language arts teachers and our interventionists. Next thing is the COVID mitigation plan. So we were required by the state to put together a COVID mitigation plan. The state is no longer looking at the 4 cases and then closing down the school if we get to the 4 cases. So they're looking more at percentages. So what we've provided on the mitigation plan is how many students and staff, because you have enrollment of students, and then in the next column you have the number of staff and students, and looking at them together, how many people in that building would be 1% of the population, 2%, 3%, 4%, or 5%. So based on that, we have safe interventions that are in place. What we have in the 0 to 2% is what we're doing now. If we were to get to 3% of the population at any given school, we would continue with everything that we're doing in 0 to 2%, but we would add some additional items. For example, we would wipe down desks more constantly. For middle and high school, they would be wiped down after every class. We would keep classroom and office doors and windows open and propped to increase airflow. If we get to 5%, then we have everything that's above, and in addition to that, we would have mask wearing outdoors, where right now it's only required indoors. Large group gatherings would take place outside with universal mask wearing. We would have no indoor staff meetings. They would either be done virtual or they would be done outdoors with masks. We would have students facing all one direction in cafeteria and classrooms. We would not have grouping of students. The list goes on and on right there. And then if we get to above 5%, when you look at our numbers, that's actually quite a few people in that building that would be considered positive. So then we may, at that point, look at shifting to remote learning for maybe 2 days and going back to the hybrid that we had back in the spring, looking at more outdoor learning, possibly looking at the possibility of remote learning. So this is a plan that we have presented to the state. It has already been approved by them. We did get input from all of our administrators and our nurses in creating this plan. The plan can still be tweaked if we feel that it needs to be revised or edited at any point that we look at that. And even with the 0 to 2%, we do look at all cases on an individual basis. So anytime we have a positive case in any of the schools, we do staff it together, the nurses, the principal, and I, to make a decision on how we need to move forward. So any questions on the mitigation plan?
Some questions on the bullets that you have. One is that students who are ill are required to stay home, remain at home, and notify the school. Is that when they're symptomatic, or is that just to the?
It's when they're symptomatic. So there is a list in the toolkit that says if they have these specific symptoms. So we do have the nurses work with the families when that happens.
Okay, so that probably should be noted that way then, instead of just ill. One of the things that I saw when I went to visit the schools was there were very few desks, teachers' desks, that had the plexiglass. Some of them were too small even to have that. So are we making
Some of them
strides?
don't have it at their desk. Some of them have it at teacher table because that's where they spend more of their time. They don't. A lot of them don't spend time at their desk.
There were several classrooms that didn't have it at all. And the other part too is being the staff shortage that we have in terms of the custodians and the teachers having to mop their floors and do other work you know, interferes with their time to continue not only teaching.
That
but-
was only happening at one school that was short on custodians. At one point, we had no custodians at the middle school, and that's where that was happening. So what we did
Snell?
is-
Are you talking about
I'm
Snell?
talking about Snell,
Okay,
yes.
so-
So we did bring in a cleaning company. We did bring A to Z Cleaning Company to come in on the weekend and really give the school a good thorough cleaning.
The question goes along the lines of, you know, not too long ago, there were several advertisements in the paper. And I don't see any continuing in terms of trying to do recruitment in the area of custodians. And would hope that we would start doing that to try to alleviate that shortage.
Ms. Davis, we just had that ad go out just a few weeks ago, right? A couple of weeks ago for the custodian positions?
Yeah, but if you look now, they're not there, and
They are on the website. The positions are posted on the website, but not in the newspaper.
no, and I saw those, and I'm not contesting that. But it's a matter, I think that probably has much more success than expecting people to go looking through the websites. So I think some people are encouraged if they see that if it's been up there for a while, they might stand a better chance than what they thought of otherwise. But I would like to see a better effort to try to fill that void, again, as one person anyway. The other part is there's some classrooms that are very small for the number of students that are in there. One particular in Santa Clara that I saw uses tables, and the kids sit right next to each other. And even then, they're going to have to add another table because that is, it seems like the 3 feet criteria wouldn't be met. It's just guaranteed that that's way too close. Are we doing anything to ensure that the classrooms are at the point where we can make the attempt to have at least 3 feet between students?
And that is the guidelines in the toolkit is 3 feet or to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah, in the case where we have a table which is smaller than this and 2 kids are sitting next to each other, that's clearly not going to happen. And every single student sits at a table with somebody else with them. It is a full classroom that's going to be added to it. So that's a concern. The other part is that the last bullet is limit family visitors in the school. And if you could kind of describe that a little bit more.
So even, for example, when Misty came and we were going to do walkthroughs of the school, we did it after 4 o'clock when students were gone. So we don't want, unnecessary visitors to the school. They do still have parent meetings. They still have IEP meetings with parents. They still have SAT meetings with parents. But we're limiting them when they walk through the schools and in the classrooms.
Okay.
And all principals have agreed that that's what they want to do.
Okay, that's fine. It just seems when it said limit, like it was going to be, so I'm glad to see it's not an arbitrary number and it's more function-based than it is anything else.
Go ahead, Joyce.
Ms. Davis was going to give us a staff update.
Good evening, everyone. What I did with the staff is I went back and I relooked at everything. And so what I did is I broke it up actually into our fiscal school years because it was a lot of people that just kind of retired or we hired. And so I broke it down into the fiscal years. So the first year, from July 1st to 2020 to June 30th, 2020, because that's our school fiscal year, which was last year, we had a total of 268 employees, which 7% resigned. We had 4% retirements and 2% non-renewals, for a total of 13%. I'm just waiting for them to write down. I can repeat if you guys need me to. In July, starting this school year, goes from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. We have 255 staff. We've had 3% resignations. 3%, 4% retirements, and 0% non-renewals, for a total of 7%. I did this as of our last board meeting. So last week when we had our board meeting, I just came back and I reworked the numbers because I was like, that's a lot. And when I decided to look at it more at our fiscal years and when people are leaving and coming, we can actually really tell on what year people have either when they've left our district. And then I just wanted to also let you guys know, in our last fiscal year, towards the end, there was 8 new hires, and starting July 1st in this school year, we've had 29 new hires for this school year.
Ms.
Any
Davis,
questions?
the last report you gave us, there was just shy of 50 retirements and resignations. How did we go from that to?
If you look at it, because those are just
14?
percents, I can give you whole numbers. If we had 53 from all together of what I gave you, there was 53 retirements if you look at both years. Because if you look at last fiscal year, there was 20 resignations, 11 retirements, and 5 non-retirement or non-renewals, which was 34 for last fiscal year. This fiscal year, starting in July 1st, we had 7 resignations and 10 retirements for a total of 17, which gave us 53 altogether.
So the data you were giving us was 2 years worth versus the
It,
current year?
it was some of it, yeah. The way that I had it, because that's the way I inherited, it was all on one big list, and so that's what I was going off. And when I started looking at it more closely, I decided to look at it and break it down to the fiscal years, because that's how we run our school years, from July to June. And so I just broke it, I looked at when they retired and broke down that data in that way.
Could I get a copy of that list, please?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I will email it to all of the board members. Any other questions?
So, Ms. Davis, are we doing exit interviews? I think I asked this a couple of board meetings ago.
we-
I'd be
we do
really
have-
interested to see that data. I think it's important to know why, especially the resignations. You know, why are people leaving our schools? You know, what's the reason? You know, if they're leaving, why would they be so hesitant to provide that kind of information? I think it'd be valuable to help us to self-improve as a school district.
Gabe, and I can answer to that. I had sent out a letter out to all our departments as an exit where our staff members go, because I hadn't seen one coming into this new position. And so I did send it to our departments and got input from them, and right now I'm putting it together. So it's a form that when a person resigns, retires, or non-renewal, what have you, the principal hands it to them, and there is steps for them to follow and to go to each of the departments so we can have an exit meeting with them. So as soon as we finish putting that form together, and we will start utilizing it so we can start getting some more information on that. And again, I mean, I know the majority of the people that have given me letters, most of them just say for personal reasons. They really don't disclose the reasons why. And I mean, in the retirement, people that have retired, they put in their time. They're just ready to retire, and that's just, you know, ready to retire. So I know a lot of them don't disclose. There is even the people that might have left for, you know what, I want to move to greener pastures. They don't put on there, oh, I was upset with Cobre. They pretty much have put personal reasons as well. And so, I mean, I cannot tell them, well, I want a reason, and you better give me a reason now. It's their prerogative to put, if they want to put personal reasons. I cannot sit there and ask them, well, I need a specific one. But we are going to start making sure that they follow the steps on exiting whenever they do leave us, and hopefully maybe we might have some better data for that. But for right now, I mean, that's what we have, and hopefully we can start getting better at that.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that data, resignation certainly would be up at the forefront, but a lot of people retire to, that are, have some concerns, and we'd benefit to know what their concerns were. And some of them retire and go someplace else, or some of them resign and go someplace else as well. So kind of what it is they do afterwards, it would be interesting if they're willing to volunteer it. And I realize that's very difficult to get, but.
Yeah, we know that in education, once they put in their time, they like to go to other districts because they can get another retirement. Or they like to say, you know what, I'm done for right now. They sit out a year and they come back. And we've had quite a few of those. And matter of fact, we just had one that came back today and, has sat out, and we were able to fulfill a position at one of our schools that we were needing to fulfill. And in talking that, an update just really quick. Right now, we have just 3 positions at Snell that are still open. And one, I can't really talk about one, but there's actually 2, sorry about that. 2 of them, and one's an educational assistant and one's a reading interventionist. And then at Bayard, we have a cafeteria monitor, which is, they just work about 2 hours a day, and a math interventionist, but that one is because of the grant. That was not a position that we needed to fill. It's because of one of the grants that we got. Central Elementary, we are needing an educational assistant and also a lunch monitor at that school. At Hurley Elementary, we are needing to replace the custodian. We're still trying to find a 3rd grade teacher to kind of break up that split they have there, and then also a lunch monitor. San Lorenzo, they're doing good. They don't need anyone. Cobre High School, they're fully staffed. Snell Middle School and Bayard Elementary, we're looking at still hiring a nurse so that there's a nurse that covers all our schools, so we're still looking for that 4th nurse in our district. And then we're also looking for a counselor or social worker to work with Snell Middle School and San Lorenzo, and that's again so we can hopefully have more coverage with a social worker or with a counselor. And then in our food service department, we are looking for a manager/cook and a server. And then our maintenance department, a fleet technician, and then IT, we need an IT specialist. So those are just the positions that we're needing to still fulfill. Any other questions? No. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for the report.
Yes.
The last item on my superintendent report is just a reminder that tomorrow evening from 5:30 to 7:30, we do have the Fall Region 8 meeting, and I believe we're supposed to register in advance for that. And it is virtual.
Yes, the meeting is tomorrow, 5:30 to 7:30. It's virtual, and you'll have to register online and make sure that Joe and his staff give you credit for being there, and that they're the ones taking care of that.
And you do earn 2 hours of credit. And that's all on my superintendent report.
Okay, you had no student
No,
rep.
not-
Okay, under public input, do we have anything, Victor? Public input.
Thank you, Vice President, board members, and the administration, superintendent. Going back to the question that was asked, why are people resigning or retiring? COVID has really put a crimp on family structure, caring for elders, seeking daycare, aside of the change of methods of education has put really quite a challenge on this skill, trained profession. I think there's a lot of reasons. I guess my comment is that question is very reactive when you're asking a person, why did you leave the profession, either to seek other opportunities, or seek retirement. Now that you're focused on the retreat, a working tool for you would be to ask the current staff, teachers, administrators, what would keep you in the profession? What could Coveted do to keep you within the umbrella of Coveted school system? I think if you direct the principals to get a questionnaire, a ranking criteria of possible recommendations from all levels of structure of this institution, and find out what we need to do to encourage them to stay within the umbrella of Cobre. I think that would be a proactive approach instead of a reactive question. What did we do wrong after the fact? It's a tough profession. And I think finding out what they need as a resource would be a working tool during the upcoming retreat that you guys are looking at. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Victor, anything? Nothing there. Any public input from the board? Mr. Gomez? Okay. Guadiana? I myself have nothing either, other than the only thing that I'd like to bring up is that each board member station, I went ahead and left a couple of SB 9 flyers to vote, and one of them includes band members, the other one includes football players, and one of them states what the use of it is, and it has come in pretty handy in going around the community and talking to people. And these flyers are available at the office. Antonio is the one that has got some copies on him, and I put one in each one, or some in each one of the board members for your information.
So I did have one question, Ms. Barela, for public input, just on the status of the scoreboard at the football field. It's been problematic for the last few games. Yeah, and just kind of curious what the situation with that is, if you have
I
any
did
update.
not realize that until it was brought to my attention today, so I do have it on my note to take care of that first thing in the morning and look into it.
Yeah,
I've-
Mr. Diaz spends most of his time trying to troubleshoot that during the
I have not
football
been
game.
made aware of that at all until today.
Hopefully, we will have some kind of warranty on that. But like everything else, whoever provided the scoreboard, who did the wiring, and what, if it was for the old scoreboard, there might be some questions there. So as soon as you find something out, let us know, because I've had like 3 phone calls on it.
Victor, do you know anything on it?
Okay.
No?
It's been problematic at every single game.
Yeah.
That's what I was
3
told
games.
today.
Okay, items for the next meeting.
We have scope of work for the superintendent search. We have the legal notice for the superintendent search, and possibly use of facilities.
Okay, and a board member is interested in the retreat, so he can get together with Mr. Sepulveda and yourself on that one. Maybe a draft exit interview, yeah, so he can suggest that on that when it comes up. Okay, I want to thank you all for coming to this board meeting, and drive home safely and stay safe. I would need a motion for adjournment. Motion from 2 board members, so we are adjourned. Thank you all.